Welcome back. Another week has gone by in college football. And now we get to reassess things piece by piece. And we'll do this a little bit, not a little bit, but by the way, Iowa State 13-point favorite to open the week against Baylor. So again, sizable.
Not surprised.
Sizable. No, but that's a sizable gap. And so I want to start with the best matchup of the week, Garrett, in Oklahoma State and Kansas State. And, you know, I'm not a conceited person. I'm not a person who likes to say, I told you so. You know this about me. Mm-hmm. Jack knows this about me, that I'm not a person who likes to taunt people and, you know, ridicule them for little things. I'm not a person who teases and makes fun and needles when he's right. I'm above all that.
Sure you are.
I mean, again, I've never picked on the three of you mercilessly. I've not done that. I've never lashed out at some of our viewers for when they're wrong about things. That's not me. That's not the person. Like, if you say that that's me, I'm thinking that's a different person. That being said, Garrett, what was the reason I said that Oklahoma State was bound to struggle this year?
Alan Bowman not being a good quarterback?
Well, it's the reason that Oklahoma State, among a couple others, but chiefly couldn't get back in that game against Kansas State was?
Alan Bowman cannot throw the football. He's not a good quarterback.
I've come to a realization. College basketball your college basketball team is at its best when you do have a lot of 22 and 23-year-olds.
Correct.
College football is at its best when you have a better mixture.
Yes.
Because you win conference and national titles with NFL players. If you are going to the NFL, you would not need a seventh year of eligibility.
Not at all.
So because of that, and look, there are going to be outliers to every case that I have. But I think for the most part, if you're in your seventh year of eligibility, the professional sports world has told you you're a college athlete. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm willing to accept outliers. But for the most part, that's true. So if you tell me that you've got a seventh-year quarterback coming back, it means that you're having a hard time finding a guy who you can recruit as a freshman, keep as a freshman, and play as a sophomore.
Yep.
I get the world that we live in, especially when it comes to quarterbacks in college football. But the reason that they wanted Alan Bowman back is because they knew they didn't have anybody else.
Yeah, Garrett Rangel's bad.
Yeah, he got his shot. He was 3 of 11 against Utah. So Kansas State got right. They got right at home. And early in the game, when it was close, Ollie Gordon looked like Ollie Gordon again. But he went from, well, and then that they fell so far behind, he wasn't really a factor.
Yeah, he didn't.
So it's just, this is a year to me, it seems like 2 years ago for Oklahoma State, where they came off the Big 12 title game loss. They had a lot of people back, but they had injuries, or there were things that they couldn't really fix that they maybe overestimated. Here, defensively, look, they lost Mason Cobb to USC. That's a big deal. You know, they're one of their better defensive players. They lost their best defensive player to an injury earlier in the year. They're just not very good on defense like they have been. They have really good skill players, and they have a pretty decent offensive line that has, albeit underperformed this year. And that's a huge thing, especially for Alan Bowman. To give Alan Bowman a little bit of credit, the offensive line he was supposed to have has not played up to par yet. But also, 26 of 50 doesn't win any games.
No, it doesn't, but I also think like the line has something to do with that. I feel like the line was kind of overrated in the same sense how you're describing Bowman, where you expected them to be better just because they were been there for a while. And I think that's kind of where they're running into a situation where that might not be the best thing. Maybe you should have put some younger guys in there and a little more talent. Everybody's loading the box on Ollie Gordon, and he just can't get anything pushing. I mean, he can't run. I mean, that everybody knew that was going to be the approach to stopping them. They just need a quarterback that can open things up for them, and they just don't have that with Bowman. I think you also see some issues where you have Bowman and Ollie Gordon going at it on the yelling at each other on the field, but miscommunication. Like, they just look out of sync. And honestly, things with Oklahoma State have just kind of been off for a while now. I don't ever really know what to make of this team because they're always consistent, but like they never really make a push for championships. And this year, it's much of the same. They're just kind of there and getting lost in the shuffle. Kansas State came out. Avery Johnson looked really good on that against that defense, running around and throwing on them. I don't really know what to make of the Pokes, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either, and they've got to find themselves. They really do. And Kansas State got back on their feet. Utah, we talked about, lost earlier. That was surprising. Cam Rising's finger needs to heal in a hurry because he brings them a consistency they just don't have when he's out. We've seen that now the last 2 seasons. BYU and Baylor we've talked about. TCU beats Kansas.
Not surprised.
No, I'm glad you talked me out of that one.
I had your back, man.
Yeah, you did. We were walking through the SMU tailgate, and TCU was winning, and they were all mad. And then so was Amanda.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, they had common ground for a minute. We're talking about Colorado UCF. I know that there are people who are naysayers in the world, and will say they'll look at that Cincinnati and Tech game, 44-41, and poke holes in Tech. And I think we've poked all the holes in Tech that they deserve. What I will say is they gave up the touchdown that cut the gap to 3 with 4.5 minutes left, and then didn't give up another score. That's maturity. That's growing up a little bit because there are times now. Part of that also helps that you're in Lubbock, so that you're not on the road. They need to in games like that on the road. That'll show another step. They've won more on the road the last year than they did previously, but maybe not in games like this on the road. Usually it was it's out, the hay's out of the barn so fast. But winning a close game like that, I think is good for Joey McGuire. Taj Brooks had another big game. If Taj Brooks is playing in the game, Tech is
they got a good shot.
They've got a good shot to win. He's that good. Brendan Sorsby.
He's good. He's pretty good.
Lighting it up. Yep.
That was my first time watching Sorsby. I was impressed with his mobility. He's pretty quick. He's fairly accurate. But you can win with him. He's definitely better than what they had last year with Emory Jones. That was just brutal. But no, he makes Cincinnati a team that you can't really sleep on. They're still not necessarily a threat to most people that they face. I still think they're trying to find their identity. I'm still not sold that Satterfield's the guy for them. But they definitely are better than what they are.
They're a different team completely. Last year, you could write them off almost right out of the gate in every game. And they look like a team that knows what
they're competent.
They look like they know what they're doing now. Last year, and happens in the first years of coaching, didn't look like anybody knew what they were doing, right? And then that's fine. That's what you get in first-year teams and all that. There's a little bit of that. But this year, Cincinnati, to me, looks like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They look like they know what they're doing. So more power to them. That was I'm sure it's a tough loss, especially when you lit up the offense like you did. But good for Tech. There's something there. They really do. If they can stay healthy and start to fix slowly the problems that they have, or mask them, or make adjustments, they're going to be tough to deal with. Now, giving up 41 points doesn't make me feel any better about their defense, but they were able to get stops exactly when they needed to.
Right.
And run the clock out when they needed to. So that's important. That was an important thing for Tech this weekend. And so there you go. But yeah, Big Lubbock says Cincinnati in the trenches is very good. Yeah, that's how you build the team too, to go from getting destroyed to kind of making it better. You get in the trenches good, then everything else kind of falls in place after that. Because if you have good linemen, then it's really good to see where you're deficient other places. When you have a bad offensive line and the offensive line is playing well, or playing poorly, you could have a quarterback that's playing poorly, but it's like a play-by-play thing of like, okay, which one of like who's to blame on this one? If you've got a quarterback that's really, really good, I'll use the Cowboys before they brought in Amari Cooper. They had Dak Prescott, who was coming off a really good year. Des Bryant was gone, and they were going to roll out with a bunch of number 4 wide receivers and think it was going to be okay, right? And then they get 8 games into the year, they're 3-5, and they're like, we know what the problem is because it's the wide receivers. You have a player who's playing really well, and then nothing else is working out. So when you figure those things out, like if you have a good defensive line that's getting sacks, but you're still going to have touchdown passes, then you might need new cornerbacks, right? If you have a defensive line that's filling gaps and tackles are getting broken in that second level, then you need linebackers. UCF learned that last year.
Yeah, they did.
And maybe last week. But, like those are the things that you need to get better at. But if you don't have those at the fronts, then the other problems can't really solve themselves. Right? So now sometimes your quarterback is so bad, even though your front's bad, you have to change that before you fix everything else because then it kind of changes the mojo of the team. So anyway, but yeah, I think that Cincinnati's gone a long way to fix that. So far, second year of Scott Satterfield, he's not going anywhere. I think they're in for a haul with him. Like they know where they were and what happened when Luke Fickell went to Wisconsin. So